Assalamu alaikum. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mukhtar Ahmed with the Virtual University course of Leadership and Team Management. And I'm here with my lecture number 15. Ladies and gentlemen, we started this course focusing on three components: the leaders, the followers, and the situation, to understand the leadership process and how to manage team, and what kind of role individuals they are playing in this whole process of leadership and team management. The first part, of course, we are focusing on this process of leadership. Remember, leadership is a process, not a position. And this process involves three major important components. One is the leader, second is the followers, and third is the situation. During the last 14 lectures, we tried to understand this leadership process, focusing mainly on the leaders. And of course, we touched the followers part too. Then we shifted to the theoretical part, tried to understand the history of this whole process of leadership and importance of leadership. Why we are focusing on this subject, why this subject is becoming so important, that every organization, they are trying to understand it better. They are training their people to learn more about followers, leader, and this whole process of team management. Because we understood that of course leaders are born with few characteristics, but same time we can learn those traits, those behaviors, those attitudes which can help us to become good leaders. And that is how we can separate leaders from the followers. But remember that both leader and followers are important, and they are depending on each other for their performance. Leaders' achievements, outcomes depend on the followers, their competency, their commitment, their dedication, and their behavior part. At the same time, the followers' achievements also depend on the leaders. So we cannot isolate them. They need to be understanding each other. There should be a kind of trust among them. That is how a team, a group, an organization can be successful. Ladies and gentlemen, during the last lecture, lecture number 14, I tried to explain to you the personality and those traits of personalities which are important. And the main focus of our lecture number 14 was, number 1, the 5 big model of personalities. And later on, the second part, I tried to explain to you very important those personality indicators model. We know it is known as MBTI, that is Myers-Briggs type of indicators. And I hope you understood those things. I tried to be very simple. I tried to explain to you in a way that you should be very comfortable to understand this concept. And remember, I gave you during the last lecture a small assignment for your own purpose, for your own sake, that try to understand your own personality. Try to see what kind of components you have in your personalities. Remember that we discussed during last lecture the 16 types of personality traits, or 16 types of personalities based on this model. Ladies and gentlemen, while discussing the leadership process, I tried to explain to you the leader component, a leader part of this whole process, and the followers. The third component, situation, was just touched in one of the previous lectures. So I thought, before starting the power and influence, why don't we just discuss with little bit more detail about the situation part? Because all these three components are very important. And I mean to say, the leaders, the followers, and the situation. So today I'll be focusing mainly on the situation part. So let's start our today's lecture, which is lecture number 15, where we'll be focusing mainly on the situation part. So ladies and gentlemen, as I said, leadership is a process, not a position, with the three components: the leaders, the followers, and situation. And in the situation, we try to understand that it is not that simple, because this situation concept can be of the one simple environmental factor, situational factor, or you can say the cultural factor, or it can be a complex context of this situation where those followers and leaders, they have to interact, and where the leader is going to perform or do his or her job. So how can we understand? Let's try to understand what are the basic components we want to focus when we're talking about the situation. When we're talking about a situation, it can be the task type, the structure of the organization, the stress of the environment itself, and so many other factors. Or to be more specific, this situation factor influencing the leadership process can be size of the organization life cycle stage, social and psychological climate, pattern of employments, type, place, purpose of the job, culture of the organizations, or we can say the overall environment, leaders-follower interactions, leaders-followers compatibilities, and the compatibilities within the followers too. And there can be some more factors which can play a very important role while we are discussing the situation. I'm not going to spend this lecture explaining each point. I'll just pick few of those important points which are going to play a very important role in the situation component and overall the leadership process. Let's talk about the size of the organization. Why it is important? We can have small organizations, we can have the larger organization, we can have the small team, we can have the larger team, we can have a small group, or we can have a larger group. So what make a difference and why it is different basically? Leaders of small organizations can be like production manager, like salesperson, marketing manager, or advocate, maybe teacher. So these are the people who have the limited number of followers working with them. It can be a coach of a team, it can be a captain of a team. So they have to deal with few number of people. They can have the direct interaction with the individuals. While the leader of the larger organization, if the size is bigger, they have a different type of interaction then. They focus basically mainly on the image, and they think in terms of this whole community as their organization. It can be a multinational organization, it can be a huge investment organization where they have different kind of activities at different locations. So why it is important? Why size is becoming so important? Let's try to understand what is the difference between large and small organization, right? Larger organization, they focus mainly economy of scale. The more number, the better result. Now what will be the focus? Their main focus will be the number, economy of scales. Let's see if an organization it is in a marketing organization or doing the business selling something. So their focus will be to produce in the large quantity, and of course they can have the large number of their customers. In the case of larger organization basically, they can have more departmentalizations, they can have more multi-layer organization setup, and what is going to happen? Now the leaders need to interact on the sub-group leaders And those subgroup leaders are the head of those different sections. They need to interact with their individual team members. So it will be a kind of vertical organization, more vertical organization rather than the flatter concept. So in case of smaller organization, the leader is going to have more one-to-one interaction rather than the larger organization, right? The larger organization is a complex organization, while the smaller organization is a simple organization. The larger organizations have the typical kind of organization setup, and it can be a bureaucratic setup, it can be a positional effect in that larger organization concept, while in case of smaller organization or new organization, it will be more entrepreneurial approach. The issue is, when you are a leader of larger organization, the way you are interacting with your followers, the way you are interacting with your team members is going to be a bit different than if you are the leader of the larger organization. In the larger, then you are the leader of the smaller organization, I mean. In case of larger organization, you have less chance to interact with the individual team members. While in the smaller organization, a leader has more interaction with the individual team members. In the larger organization, leader can act coach of only those subgroup leaders, because he or she cannot go to each level, each member and try to coach them, teach them or train them. And there, that leader is going to act as a master trainer, and he has to train those head of the institution, head of the sections, which later on they're going to transfer those things or train them, those leader or team members within those groups. While the leader of the smaller organization, he or she has the opportunity to have more interaction with individuals, and he or she can act coach of those individuals' team member, right? Similarly, when the size change, I'll explain to you different stages of life cycle of any organization. But basically, when the size change, what is going to happen? Our structure, the organization setup, it is going to change. The way that we are working together, it is going to change. It is going to be more formal organization when the size is increasing. So formalizations increases while the size increase. Similarly, centralization with the increase in the size, change in the size, this centralization is going to decrease, because now they have the subunits, and each unit is going to have empowerment. So central command is going to decrease. This centralization concept or process is going to decrease as the size change, as the size increase, size of the organization. What about complexity within the organization? It is going to be more complex when the size of the organization is going to increase. So see, all those things are going to have a definite effect on the leadership process, and how leaders are going to interact, how leaders are going to communicate, how leaders are going to make the decisions. That is going to be affected by all these different situation factors. This complexity, of course, in vertical and horizontal, in both ways, it is going to increase as the size increases. What about the personnel ratios in the organizations? Administrative versus clerical job. The management versus the worker ratios. How it is going to be affected when the organization size increase. That when the organization size we are increasing, the top administration ratio is going to decrease as compared to the workers or the doer things. Similarly, the clerical ratio is going to increase. There, in beginning, when the size was less, it was a small size organization, there were few clerical people, the few clerical staff. When you have divided this organization now into small different subgroups, like you have a finance department, you have a production department, you have the accounting department, you have the management department, you can have the purchase department separately, you can have the marketing department different. So more the department there, more decentralization there, more administrative and clerical staff is required for each unit. So as the size is increased, the ratio of the clerical staff is going to increase. Similarly, the professionals, the technical people, as the organization grow, as size increase, their number is also going to increase. Let's see what other effects we can see when the organization is growing. When the organization is growing, administrators grow faster even. Now this is previously we were talking about the ratios. Now we are talking about without comparing those with other people. Of course, when the organization grow, the administration, they also grow faster. But when it is other way around, when organization is shrinking basically, the administration shrinks slowly as compared to when the organization is growing fast, and they are also growing fast. They are the last person who will be the leaving organization when we are reducing the organization. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the organization size itself. It has effects on the different activities in the organization, the ratios, the procedures. The same way it is going to affect the leadership process. Because if it is a smaller organization, leader has to act differently. His or her role is going to be different. The way he or she is going to communicate is going to be different. The way followers are going to receive direction, instruction, or the coaching is going to be different. What about the life cycle? Each organization has to go through different stages of their different stages during the life of the organization. And we can see different terms people are using when we are talking the lifestyle of any organization, right? Now people have divided this life cycle of any organization, like if you remember in the marketing, we discussed the life cycle of a product. The same way an organization need to go through different stages during the time period. And few people have divided this life cycle into 4 stages. Few people have discussed those things into 5 or 6 stages. The basic point is, one thing is introduction, or the birth stage we call it. Some people call it introduction, some people call it the birth stage basically. Then sooner an organization is coming into reality, it start growing. So when it start growing, we call it a growth stage. Then similarly, the third stage, some people have this third stage, discuss in their text the third stage, otherwise they can go directly to the maturity stage. Here I can show you another stage people are using is, they call it shakeout stage. And then the fourth stage is the maturity stage. And the fifth stage is the decline stage. This is the natural life cycle of anything. One thing will come in the reality, it grow, it mature, it die out with the passage of time. Of course, the time span vary from organization to organization, from product to product. Clear? Again, ladies and gentlemen, the life cycle of any organization. It can be 4 stages, or people have divided them into 5 stages. Let's talk about first the 4 stages. Growth stage, before growth is the birth stage, then the growth stage, then the maturity stage, and the decline stage. While another one, if you have seen in a different way, it can be birth stage, growth stage, shakeout stage, maturity stage, and decline stage. People can have different names for all these stages too. Someone can say, when it is the growth stage, rather, when it is the birth stage, it is the entrepreneurial stage, where the creativity is happening. Some people have thought, we should develop, or we should kind of come up with a different type of setup, a different organization. So it is the birth of an organization is taking place. Those founders which are creating that particular organization, they are going to play a very important role, because they are acting as an entrepreneur also. They are taking risk. They are trying to create something new. So here, the role of the leader is going to be totally different as compared to the later, under some later stages. Sooner, this entrepreneur stage will move to growth stage. Here, people are going to have collective efforts. Now, let's see, our organization started with a couple of people. This might be an idea of one person or two persons. And then later on, this collective thing has started because those few people, they have created something very dynamic, which have people like now they can observe. They are coming up with few products maybe in the market. They might be coming up with some kind of services provider things in the market. So sooner they will start growing. And it is going to be formalization stage, growing stage. And here more people will be entering in the organization. So sooner when they are growing fast or when they are growing basically, what is going to happen? It will be difficult for one person to handle all those activities or focus on all activities of their organizations. So what is going to happen? Now different departmentalization is going to kind of taken place. Different departments are going to be formed within the organization. In the beginning, it may be one or two departments within the organization, but later on, because in the beginning, as I said, the leader or the founder was acting as the entrepreneur, and he can be himself or herself the account officer, the marketing person, the maybe finance person, and then he or she can be manager too, administration too. But later on, when they are expanding, when they are growing, now on second stage, leader need to delegate the powers. He or she need to give the delegations. They need to distribute. Now leader will be acting as more as giving the direction, telling people what to do. In beginning, at the birth stage, he or she might be acting or doing job himself or herself. But later on, when the organization grow, when the organization kind of the life cycle they move forward, more people are coming. Now he needs to delegate things. Then of course when the third stage is coming, it will be more like more systems are being developed. The bureaucracy kind of thing is coming. I'll show you a few more slides for these things. And the fourth stage, basically in the third stage, they are going to have more kind of red tapeism type of things. This more system are being evolved. And the fourth stage, it is going to be teamwork. There are going to be more divisions. And each division is going to be headed by somebody else. And within the division, they're going to have the team members, right? So when the last maturity stage comes, or before the declining, it is the stage when they are going to maintain, when they are going to establish themselves. And they are going to have more options. They might be coming up with another business type of things. And when declining stage comes, again it depends. The same organization can take up a different shape, or they can close it with the decline thing and move to another new business. So see, during each stage, the role of the manager, the role of the leader is going to be different. The way he or she is going to communicate is going to be different. And I was just telling you the bureaucratic approach within the organization. What is going to happen? At the birth stage, it is more entrepreneurial approach. The second stage, growth stage, what is going to happen? It is going to be pre-bureaucratic kind of stage, we are saying, less formalities. So as the organization grow, it is going to have more formal setup. It is going to have more fixed SOPs developed there, the system developed there. And it is going to be moving toward bureaucratic things. Not in a negative sense, I'm talking about the positive sense, like more system approach. So, role of the leader is going to change at each level of organization's life cycle. Clear? So, ladies and gentlemen, this organization as a whole, it comprises of people, technology, the size, the structure, the life cycle, the environment, and these all components are affecting the leadership process. The type of people there, the type of environment in which they are working, the kind of technology they are using, the kind of strategy they have adopted, the kind of structure that organization have. So these are going to have different effects on the leadership process. And of course, the behavior and role of role of leader is also going to be different. This situation will influence the organization style, organization design too. Why? Because it depends on the organization life cycle. It also depends on the organization size. It depends on the core technology they are using and the kind of environment in which they are working. It can be, I don't want to go in those details because you might have covered those things in your basic management courses. The departmental type of organization design, the hybrid type of organization design, and so on. But I'm not going to touch those things. I'm just trying to address those small issues so that you and other people should be able to understand how situation is going to affect the leadership process, right? Let's move to another topic, another point we initially discussed about the situation. The social and psychological climate of the organization, or the social and psychological climate of the situation in which this leadership process is taking place. What are those components which can form the social or psychological climate? It can be, those factors can be the confusion, state of confusion within the team members or within the environment of the organization. Anxiety, the conflicts, the mistrust, stress, politics within the organization. Let's talk about stress. If leader is under stress, if the followers are under stress, or if they are working in an environment, in a situation which is stressful, of course the leadership process is going to be different. It is going to have an effect on the leadership process. By the way, this stress is not always bad. For the performance, we know that in beginning the stress is essential part. The more the stress you have, the better performance you can give. But of course there is a limit. There is a threshold level. Because beyond that, that stress is going to have a negative effect. And if it is a continuous stress, it can be burnout. Remember this stress process? The role of stress in the performance, there is a bell-shaped graph, usually we see in the text, that in beginning stress is required and good for the performance. But if it is a continuous stress, and it increases to threshold level of individuals, and it varies from person to person, by the way, one can be more prone to stress, and there might not be. One person can easily come under stress with this minimum stress, while another person can have the guts to sustain the stress more. So ladies and gentlemen, all those social and psychological factors playing very important role, the part of the climate which can affect the leadership process. What about the pattern of employment? Do you have full-time employments? Or you have the part-time employment in the organization? People are on contract employment? Are they a regular employee of the organization? And some other factors. They can also have the positive or negative effect in the leadership process. What about type, place, and purpose of the work? The type of the work is an important factor? Yes. If you have very clear-cut duties assigned to you, your behavior will be different. And of course, ultimately, the leadership process is going to be different. If it is a routine work, it's kind of our same way, in other way or other, it is a creative work, it is a challenging work, it is just a routine work. Each can have the different type of effects on the followers, on the leader, and of course in the situation where they are working. And ultimately, it is going to have the effect on the leadership process. If the things are not clear, if the work assignment is not clear to you, if you are a follower or if you are a leader, whatever, so it is going to have a different type of effect than if it was a very clear-cut, proper job description and specification. So organization culture, and remember we are talking about different component of the situation. We are discussing the third component of the leadership process. We have already explained the leaders, the followers, and today we are focusing the situation part. What about the culture? Culture of the organizations, which is going to form a very important component of the situation where they are working together, the leader and the followers. It has also very important effect on this whole process of leadership. By the way, what is the culture? There are different kind of definition people define the culture of any organization, but it is the system of shared values and beliefs held by organization's member. That is known as the organization culture. And we know that all organizations have the cultures. Culture can be culture by default or culture by design. And how does an organization create a culture? It depends on so many different things. Just try to give you some basic information about the culture. Remember, we were just discussing the life cycle of any organization. At the birth stage, those founders, those entrepreneurs, which has taken this challenge to create an organization, or create a group, or create a team, they have their own vision, their own philosophy about the organization. And if they are strong enough, those beliefs, those philosophy of those founder members, or those founders leaders, is going to play a very important role in defining the culture of any organization. Those philosophies of organization's founders, and based on which they have selected different peoples, they have developed a team, and the way they have socialized their team member within the organization, and the way they have created their top management, all these things are going to have an effect on the culture formations of any organization. And that is how an organizational culture are being formed. These are the basic philosophies, the value system, and we can observe those cultural things through symbols, ceremonies, stories about organizations, the behaviors, the language they are using, the dress they are wearing, the way they are behaving with the people, the value system within the team member of the organization, and of course the leaders, to create the culture of any organization. The underlying roots of this culture will be the values, the beliefs, the attitudes, and feelings of those people who are part of the organization. And it form, it develop based on the philosophies, the values, the attitudes, the norms of those leaders, those founders who created that particular organization. Of course, with the passage of time, it changed. The culture of organization do change, but it depends how strong leaders are there. If a leader with a very strong beliefs, the value system, they are joining the organization, they can act as the change agent and they can create a different culture, but it will take some time. So ladies and gentlemen, this culture thing, they are also playing an important role when we're discussing the leadership process. And we're talking about the type of organization culture. I can just quote a few of them. You can have the control culture, which start with your giving the order. If the organization has a control culture, of course their leadership process will be different. The behavior of the followers will be different. The behavior of the leader will be different. Organization can have collaboration culture. They'll be more friendly. They will be having more close relationship with the colleagues, with their stakeholders, with their customers. Organization can have competence culture, where they can pursue for the excellence. They can have the cultivation culture. So ladies and gentlemen, the type of culture prevailing in any organization can have also a direct effect on the leadership process. And we know that these cultural effects can have direct effect on the behavior of the individuals. It can have direct effect on the leader behavior. It can also have effect on the followers' behavior. What kind of behaviors are we talking? The way they communicate, the way they cooperate, the way they show their commitment about their work, about their organization, about their group, the way they are making decisions, the way they are implementing the decisions, and of course the leadership style. This culture is going to have the effect on these type of behavior aspect, of course, which is going to have an effect on the leadership process. So the bottom line is the culture permeates the organization behavior, and it is going to have effect on the organization behavior. And what is organization? Where we have the followers and we have the leader. So ultimately, it can provide it can act as a force which is affecting this whole leadership process. Remember, but these cultural things, these behavior things are very hard to quantify. Their behavior, their action, the way they cooperate, the way they communicate, the way they make decisions, the way they implement it, it is going to show you that what kind of culture is prevailing in that particular organization. Oh yes, this is affecting the leadership process too, right? So we have to understand this thing, because organizations are like a village, a town, a city, whatever you name it. And within the organization, they have the rituals for dealing with the people, dealing with the different events. And they can have different style of work. If you go in one village, you can find different type of behavior there. The different type of activities they are involved. The different kind of style they are treating people. The different kind of behaviors there. The same way, an organization, within the organization, people can have different rituals. They can have unspoken taboos. They can have social structure and pattern of behavior based on their value system. They can have the habit of governing issues. They can have the language style which they are doing or they are kind of using, and those norms and behavior, how to use the resources within the organization. It is going to be different because that they are different organizations. And within different organizations, they have different cultures. They have different value system. So those people, their behavior and all those cultural parts are going to have effect on their leadership process. Because we are talking the leadership process. And this is the third component, remember the situation, because all these things are part of the situation which are affecting this leadership process. So I hope you are with me, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about organizational climate. What kind of climate is there? The kind of reward system they are managing, the kind of clarity in their organizational setup, what kind of organizational performance standard they are observing, what kind of affection and support system they have, what kind of leadership practices they are observing there. So those are activities which are on which those performance depends, is forming the organizational climate. And these organizational climates can also have a role on the leadership process. These organizational climates can influence the quality of the work and work life of the members of the organization, including the followers and the leader. So let's consider a teaching institution for that purpose. They can have their standards. And if standards are high, the institution organization is going to be different. Their culture is going to be different. Their behavior is going to be different. Of course, the process of leadership is going to be different. So let's assume, be positive, that the organization is going to have high standards. So once they have the high standards, of course it means they have going to have the proper SOPs, their quality concern, their systems are established, so it means their leadership is effective. Their goals and responsibilities are clear, their support system is prevailing there, the reward system is enforced based on the performance, so obviously we can observe a creativity there. Because education institutions are meant for three things. They impart knowledge, they create knowledge, and they integrate with the society. So ladies and gentlemen, if the climate of that education institution is a better climate, with all those aspects I was just trying to explain to you in positive way, the quality conscious, and if with effective leadership process, so what is going to happen? That organization is going to have better climate. It is going to have creativity there. Of course, it is going to be obvious there. So leadership is going to be effective, right? Then how can we say that leaders are effective based on this climate? If the leaders are effective, it means the climate is consistent with the leadership style. So of course, then leadership is going to be effective. The process is going to be effective. And if the climate is different, we need to create a fit. We need to change the leadership process to fit with the climate of the organization. Of course, the leader needs to be little bit changed to make himself or herself fit with the climate. At the same time, if you are having followers, especially the new followers, they also need to be kind of perceiving this fit in a different way. So it means we need to create the change, and that change is going to create an effective leadership process where leader, followers, they are going to be in line with the climate of the organization. Or let's put another way around. The leader and the followers, they are going to be in a way creating the environment where they are in the line with each other. If they are in line with each other, so naturally it is going to have the effective leadership process. If they're not in line with each other, so it is going to be misfit. And when it is a misfit, so we can say it is ineffective leadership style, or it is going to ineffective leadership process, right? So that is how, see, the climate is also going to affect the situation, of course, where they're working, and yes, the ultimately leadership process. Let's talk about overall environment of the organization. And you know what is environment? Environment can have micro component and micro forces, or they can have the macro forces. We can have the micro factor, which can have direct effect on the organizations, or we can have the macro factor, which are going to have the indirect effect on the organizations. In the micro forces, you can have the competitors, you can have your own customers, you can have your own employees or your followers, and similarly the kind of culture in which you are performing. So ladies and gentlemen, the environment forces, they're also playing very important role in the working of the organization, the way followers are going to act, because when the environment change, people do change. When the environment change, those forces change, it is going to have the effect of maybe positive, maybe negative, to the working culture, working environment of the organization, working climate of the organization, and ultimately it is changing the situation. So when the situation is changing, so naturally it is affecting the leadership process. I'm trying to bring all those factors or component of the situation which can affect the situation where this leadership process is taking place, so that we should understand the relationship between those factors, between those forces, and the overall leadership process, right? So as I was telling you, that environment can be task environment, a general environment, or micro environment, or macro environment, or there is third, people can use the third way, the internal environment or external environment. Those can be competitors, distributor, customers, suppliers, your own followers, employees, whatever. And you can have the external or general environment or macro environment factors, which can be technological forces, which can be situational forces, which can be demographic forces, which can be political and legal forces, which can be economical forces, and so on. And how do those forces affect your situation and ultimately your leadership process? Right? The organizational environment is the set of forces surrounding an organization. Remember that. That have the potential to affect the way it operates and if access to scarce resources. And these organizations in environment consist of specific and general forces, or internal or external forces, or micro or macro forces, right? And they can have direct effect on the organizational ability to utilize their resources or obtain their resources. And of course, when it is affecting the situation, so ultimately it is going to affect the leadership process. Let's see, it was a participative leadership style, but when the resources are scarce, and if it is not working, you cannot satisfy everybody, so then you as a leader need to decide the priorities. That whatever meager resources you have, where is the priority area, you need to first satisfy that priority area or that priority group. And that is how it is going to affect your leadership style. And this is how it is going to affect the whole leadership process. And due to these sometimes environmental uncertainties, which can be due to capacity, which can be due to instability, or which can be due to complexity of the organization, can have positive or of course negative effect on your leadership process. As the environment become more complex, less stable and poorer, the level of uncertainty increase. And that uncertainty also, it can create a leader, that leader is going to become a more important leader when environment is uncertain, or it can have a negative effect. Remember when we were talking about the importance of leadership, and we said sometimes certain situation can also help a person to become a leader. So when it is uncertainty, yes, if a person is smart enough, that he or she can emerge as a good leader. Or it can have vice versa effect, that he can be an ineffective leader, or she can be ineffective leaders. So ladies and gentlemen, I think time is less, so I'll try to wind up. So climate, culture, environment, that can be micro or macro environment, they're all affecting the leadership process because they are affecting the situation. Similarly, the type of leaders-follower interaction, what kind of interaction they have, that can also affect the leadership process. The leaders-followers compatibilities, the trust, that can have the positive or negative effect on the leadership process. The compatibilities within the followers, that is also going to have an impact on the leadership process. So, the reason I try to explain to you all these things, because in beginning we discussed that with the change in the followers, with the change in the leaders, this whole process can change. Of course, when the situation changes, this leadership process also changes. So, winding up these things, I can say, in the situation, the task structure, the organization culture and environment, of course climate, the leader-member relationship, and the leader position, influence or power. They're going to have major impact on the leadership process. I hope you understood this concept of situation. So what did we discuss today in this lecture number 15, ladies and gentlemen? I tried to focus on the situation part of the leadership process. We said that there are three components: leader, the followers, and situation. Last 14 lectures, I tried to focus on leaders mainly, and few lectures on followers, and today's lecture was mainly focusing on the situation. And situation can have so many different factors, starting from the size of the organization, the life cycle stage, the cultures, the climate, the environment, the leader-follower interaction, the kind of compatibilities they should have, and within the followers, the kind of compatibilities. There are all factors which are affecting the leadership process. And during the last slide, I tried to explain to you that, of course, the role of leader's power and influence style can also have the effect on the leadership process. So, ladies and gentlemen, from the next lecture, lecture number 16, I'll take this power and influence part of leadership, a leader, and try to understand the role of power and influence in the leadership process. I hope you are with me and we are following each other. Work hard. Take care of yourself. Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum.